Rick Harrison goes berserk and attacks everyone after life sentence goes viral. Pulls knives from his pocket and attempts to slit throats in courtroom frenzy. In a moment that can only be described as a scene straight out of a psychological thriller, Rick Harrison, America's favorite pawn shop personality, left a packed courtroom in utter chaos and disbelief. 1 second, he was standing silently as the judge read out his life sentence, and the next, the 59-year-old reality TV icon exploded into a whirlwind of rage, weaponry, and blood-curdling screams. Let's walk through this shocking unraveling of a man once beloved by millions as we peel back the layers of the courtroom frenzy, the buried secrets, and the chilling truths no one saw coming. The calm before the storm, a reality star on the edge. Courtrooms are often emotional places, but this one was eerily silent, too silent. Rick Harrison, the patriarch of History Channel's Pawn Stars, stood motionless as the judge announced a life sentence with no possibility of parole. Some said he looked empty. Others described his face as frozen in disbelief. But no one, absolutely no one, was prepared for what happened next. For months, the public had been captivated by Harrison's descent from quirky TV star to criminal defendant. The courtroom drama, live-streamed and followed closely online, was filled with testimonies, damning evidence, and a parade of former colleagues and law enforcement officials. But even the most explosive witness statements couldn't compare to what the man himself unleashed in those final moments of sentencing. The frenzied outburst. "You ruined me." According to multiple eyewitnesses, Harrison didn't flinch until the judge uttered the word life. That's when something inside him snapped. He let out what one court reporter described as a guttural, demonic scream before reaching into both pockets and pulling out what looked like modified switchblades. Within seconds, the scene turned into sheer panic. People screamed, chairs were overturned, and officials dove for cover. "You ruined me. You'll all die with me," Harrison reportedly bellowed as he lunged toward the judge's bench. Marshals tackled him midair, but not before he slashed wildly at anyone nearby. A clerk suffered a deep gash across the forearm. A bailiff was knocked unconscious trying to subdue him. One terrified juror climbed under her seat and refused to move even after the scene was secured. But perhaps most disturbing of all, Harrison then turned the blade on himself, clawing at his own neck, attempting to slit his throat as guards wrestled the weapons from his grip. The scene was nothing short of madness. Inside the courtroom lockdown, panic, blood, and shock. The courtroom was immediately placed under lockdown. Paramedics rushed in, and Harrison was quickly sedated on the floor as law enforcement cleared the room. The scene resembled a battlefield, blood on the wood panels, screams echoing in the corridor, a panic-stricken court stenographer being wheeled out on a gurney after suffering a breakdown. Social media was ablaze within minutes. Hashtags like #RickGoneWild and #CourtroomCarnage trended across platforms. The raw footage, captured by journalists and courtroom sketch artists, went viral almost instantly. But even before this horrifying attack, the undercurrent of fear surrounding Harrison's trial had already shaken fans to their core. A hidden life exposed, from pawn shop to death dungeon. The charges leading to Harrison's sentencing had already darkened his image. But behind the tax evasion, money laundering, and trafficking of stolen artifacts lay something far more macabre. It all started with a storage locker. When a Las Vegas storage unit linked to Harrison's pawn empire was auctioned off, the buyer didn't find antiques or collectibles. They found bodies. Decomposed, bagged, and tagged. Alongside them were celebrity memorabilia, vintage weapons, and what prosecutors later called trophies. Investigators connected the gruesome scene back to Harrison's private estate. What they found there was even more horrifying. A hidden basement room, refrigerated chambers, mannequins posed with real human remains, a personal log titled Souls Acquired. It was, according to one FBI agent, a museum of death curated with the precision of a psychopath. This wasn't just a man who sold gold chains and Civil War coins. This was something else entirely. Too grotesque for TV. The surveillance tapes no one will ever see. Court documents revealed that surveillance footage recovered from Harrison's home showed what can only be described as disturbing rituals. Some bodies appeared positioned as if for dinner parties. Others were seated next to priceless collectibles. Experts testified that many were missing persons whose families had been searching for them for years. It was too much. Even veteran detectives had to excuse themselves from viewing the footage. Prosecutors opted against showing it to the jury in its entirety, calling it traumatizing and morally grotesque. Still, the narrative stuck. This wasn't just about tax fraud anymore. It was about a man who used fame to mask a horror show, who smiled for cameras while hiding corpses behind closed doors. "This country made me a monster." Rick's last words in court. As officers dragged him out, bloodied and strapped down, Rick Harrison screamed a final, bone-chilling sentence. "This country made me a monster." Was it a cry of victimhood? A desperate attempt to justify the unspeakable? Or a final declaration from a man who felt above the law until the bitter end? Conspiracy theories have taken off like wildfire. Some say Harrison was part of a larger underground network of celebrity collectors with dark tastes. Others believe he was set up, framed by enemies, or silenced for secrets he knew. The truth? It might be buried beneath years of horror. Fallout from the frenzy, fans, fame, and fallout. Longtime fans of Pawn Stars are grappling with a surreal reality. The man they watched banter with Chumlee and haggle over silver dollars is now a convicted felon with a death museum in his basement. One fan tweeted, "This is worse than finding out Santa isn't real." Another wrote, "My dad loved that show. He's sitting in silence, staring at the TV, just shocked." Memes surfaced. Late-night hosts ran with the story. But for those directly affected, the victims' families, the court officials, even Rick's own surviving relatives, this was no laughing matter. What happens next? Sedated, isolated, and heavily guarded. Rick Harrison is now under heavy security at a federal medical facility. His injuries were non-fatal, but he remains restrained and monitored at all times. Sources say he's been deemed a high-risk inmate, both to others and himself. Psychiatrists are assessing his mental state. There's talk of placing him in a long-term psychological care unit within a maximum security prison. But officials warn his violent outburst could have legal ripple effects, including new charges for attempted murder. Is he fit to stand additional trials? Is he sane? Or is this all part of a carefully constructed smokescreen? Lessons from the madness, fame, facades, and the danger of illusions. What can we learn from this? That fame is not a character reference. That what we see on screen can be carefully curated to hide the unspeakable. That even the most familiar faces can harbor the darkest secrets. Harrison's courtroom collapse didn't just end a case, it shattered an illusion. It reminded us that monsters rarely wear masks. Sometimes they wear gold chains, crack jokes, and sell nostalgia on TV. And most of all, it reminded us to ask, what else don't we know? The silence from the Pawn Stars family. Where are they now? In the aftermath of the courtroom explosion, many were left wondering, what happened to the rest of the Pawn Stars cast? Chumlee, Rick's longtime friend and co-star, has reportedly gone into hiding. Sources close to the show claim he was devastated by the revelations and may have been cooperating with authorities behind the scenes. Rumors have swirled about sealed depositions and undisclosed testimonies that may have helped prosecutors build their case against Rick. Corey Harrison, Rick's own son, issued a brief statement through his attorney. "I am heartbroken and disturbed. I have no further comment." Insiders say Corey cut ties with his father months before the trial began, having discovered some of the disturbing truth during a visit to Rick's estate in 2023. He hasn't been seen in public since the sentencing. The History Channel, which had already pulled reruns of Pawn Stars following Rick's indictment, released a formal statement. "We are horrified by recent events and stand with the victims and their families. We had no knowledge of Rick Harrison's private activities. All productions and related content have been permanently suspended." But the silence from other show insiders, producers, former guests, appraisers, has sparked more questions than answers. What did they know? When did they know it? And why didn't they speak up sooner? The online firestorm, from hero to horror story. On platforms like Reddit and TikTok, users began sharing theories and timelines, attempting to piece together the clues in hindsight. One viral video highlighted Rick's odd fascination with death-related memorabilia, coffins, war relics, and even Nazi artifacts that had once appeared on the show. "We thought it was just part of the pawn shop game," the creator says in the video. Now, it looks like a trail of breadcrumbs. Another thread points out moments from Pawn Stars where Rick made cryptic comments about mortality and legacy, moments that now seem loaded with darker subtext. Some even believe his entire TV persona was a distraction, carefully manufactured to make him seem relatable and harmless. He played the funny dad, the negotiator, the wise old pawn expert, one commenter noted. But behind the scenes, he was something else entirely. Still, others question whether Rick acted alone, or if there's a wider network of collectors and underground markets tied to the gruesome discoveries found in his possession. The victims behind the headlines, real lives, real loss. While media attention has focused on the courtroom meltdown and the eerie contents of Rick's estate, it's the families of the victims who are living the real nightmare. Several bodies recovered from the Las Vegas storage unit, and Rick's personal chambers have since been identified. Among them, a woman missing since 2012, a teenager from California last seen in 2015, and a retired veteran from Arizona whose disappearance was never solved. Each name has a story. Each story has a grieving family. "My sister was just gone one day," said one victim's brother at a press conference. "And to find out she was posed like some prop in his house? What kind of monster does that? He deserves more than life in prison." Advocates are now calling for further investigation into missing persons cases connected to Las Vegas and the surrounding states. Some fear that Rick's hidden collection may be only a fraction of what truly exists.